All right, I think we are live now.
All right.
Let's give some few seconds and let people join us here. All
Okay.
right, I'm gonna repost on our forum. All right, I see 11 people connected already. I see Emeka. Hi, Emeka. Thank you for joining, and thanks everyone for joining. As you join, please go ahead and share. You know, it's very important so that we can have more view and many people will be able to learn as well. Thank you, Remy Johnson. Thank you so much for joining. As you join, please go ahead and share. I'm very excited today. I'm always excited though whenever it comes to Agile. But as you all can see, I have a guest here, an amazing Agile practitioner, and that's why I'm even more excited. And I really hope that by the end of this session today, we all must have enhanced our knowledge of Agile and would have something to take back home. So as you connect, please kindly share. Hi, Prince. Kindly share so that more people will get on board. All right, I'm just gonna reshare this link here so that we get more people. So I see 24 people connected. So once we get to 30 people, we're gonna get started. So I'm sure like in about a minute we should get to 30 people and then we will get started. Hi, Karine. Thank you for joining. As you join, please go ahead and share. Today we are talking about a really interesting topic, and why I'm so excited about this topic is that this topic it's really overlooked. It's really overlooked, and it's actually not in the Agile books, though. To be honest with you, and even even if you're finding it somewhere, it's just in passive. So that's why I thought this topic is going to be really interesting today. And I believe that it's going to help a lot of people because now we may have some form of formal contents, which hopefully people will be able to leverage, as they do their work. Miss Ogo, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So, if you are part of our community, being Agile Community Level 2 or the community of practice, please, if you're watching, kindly repost on the platform so that they should not miss this opportunity. All right. Now, before we get started, my name is Karen from Malcolm, your Agile evangelist, and I'm so excited to be hosting and in partnership with my fellow Agile practitioner, Uchenna Okereke.
Thank
And
you.
for some of you who may just be joining, I appreciate you. So today is actually the fourth episode of our ongoing Safe Scrum series. So we started this series 4 weeks ago, and the reason why we started this series is because we have noticed and we've been getting a lot of questions around Safe Scrum, PI planning, and there's been a lot of ambiguity from professionals, from people looking to get into the Scrum field, from people that are actually already gone through some training and they're looking to land that job. So there've been a lot of mixed up. So we decided to start this series as a way of giving back to the community, where we will host professionals every week, experienced professionals that have actually worked in a safe environment, where they'll come on here and then share their experience around this domain. Again, Safe Scrum. So 4 weeks ago, we started addressing different topics, and it's been really interesting. It's been really fantastic. And today we are having our episode 4. And very fortunately enough for me, Uchenna is here to share his experience in the safe space. Now, I like to always say this, whatever we are saying here is not set on stone. That is why we are not addressing things from a theoretical perspective. It's really our own experience, and our experience may be different from your own experience. And that is why I always like to leave it open, leveraging the comment section as we progress. If you have any contribution to make, it's really a conversation. Please do not hesitate. Feel free to drop your thoughts on the comment section. And then as we progress as well, if you have questions, do not hesitate. We're going to reserve some time for questions and answers. Now, that is it. Again, those who are just joining, my name is Karen Fomafong, and I am your favorite Agile evangelist. Before we deep dive, I'm just going to give a brief summary of who Uchenna, our guest for today, is, and then we will give the ball to Uchenna to properly introduce himself to us. So, Uchenna Okereke is actually a passionate, outcome-driven Scrum Master with over 6 years of experience in facilitating the adoption of the Agile values, principles, practices, with extensive experience working with digital teams on several web and mobile applications to enhance customer experience and satisfaction. So, Uchenna actually demonstrates the ability to motivate, organize, lead, coach Scrum teams, individuals, organizations with a solid track record of giving back to the community, like what he's doing right now, and through his knowledge sharing, it may interest you to know that Uchenna, we also belong to the same community of practice, and he has also been very instrumental to that community of practice. So he's very open to sharing, open to giving back in whatever way he can, so that together, as I always say, we all can continuously learn and grow in this space. So that is a little bit about Uchenna to the best of my knowledge. Right now, I'm just going to let Uchenna tell us by himself who he is. So, Uchenna, please just give us a brief summary of who you are.
Thank you very much, Coach, for this wonderful opportunity given to me. You've said it all, actually, but the little I can add there is that my name is Uchenna Okereke. I started my career as a project coordinator before I became a junior project manager. And later then I transitioned into to become an Agile, senior Agile Scrum Master. I'm gifted and process oriented, and I am someone who is so passionate about Agile.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Uchenna, and we are so excited to have you today.
Thank you.
All right. So I just have some few conversational questions that I will be running by you.
Okay.
Again, coming from your experience standpoint, just share your experience around this, and then we're gonna reserve some time for questions from our audience. So how does that sound, Uchenna?
Great.
Awesome. All right. So I always like to confirm, if you can hear myself and Uchenna very well, please put a text that you can hear us very well, just to make sure that we're not talking to ourselves here. All right, someone please just confirm that you can hear both of us very well.
Can you guys hear me? Hello?
All right, yes, they can hear us. Thank you very much, Miss. Okay, so now we all can agree that a few years ago, Agile was not a standard academic curriculum. And therefore, there was no clear path on how to become an Agile practitioner. So because of this, one of the biggest struggles in this space, in the Agile career space, is to break into the job market. So after successfully completing the standard, for example, Scrum training, people find it so difficult to finally break even and land that first opportunity. So, Uchenna, I'm just curious to know, how were you able to bridge this gap? And you're excelling so well. How were you able to do that?
Well, it's not really to me. What I'm going to say there is that I started as a Scrum Master without even going to get the necessary certifications that I needed to get as a Scrum Master, and it was more like a transformation, where my organization was kind of transitioning from um, the waterfall to the agile mindset. So what they did that time was just to bring us up and then get an agile transformational coach to kind of coach us on Scrum values and all that. So, but after the coaching section and I started as a Scrum Master, I realized there was still a huge gap, you know, in that process. And one thing I always do is to retrospect of myself. I had to retrospect of myself where I ask myself questions if I'm actually doing the right thing, ways to improve and all that. And I realized that there is a huge gap that I needed to fill. And then in the course of asking myself the same questions on how to fill this gap, I met you, who happens to be an agile coach. And then with your help and guidance, I was able to fill that gap that I needed to fill through your mentoring and coaching section. I was able to fill that gap. I was able to actually understand what agile is actually talking about. I was able to actually get into an organization and know the right processes to implement or probably to change in an organization. So that was in a short for in a GV. That's just how I was able to fill my own gap.
Awesome. Wow, that's amazing. So, just to reiterate and make sure I understand you, so how you were able to break even is you were fortunate that in the organization you were supporting at that time as a junior project manager, when they decided to transition into the agile ways of working, you
Yes,
went through the training,
yes,
formal training, and then you assumed the responsibility of a scrum master.
for Scrum Master,
And
yes.
then because of your curiosity, you started digging, and then you see that, oh, maybe what you know so far is just the tips of the iceberg.
Just a little of it all.
And then you wanted to know more, and then you got a mentor for yourself, and that's how you were able to build yourself, and you're still working on yourself and you're excelling so well, so is that what I heard? If
Exactly, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah. So one of the beauties of this whole agile career path, I mean, to me, everybody should be an agile practitioner. I really don't see why some people should be doing other things. I mean, even if you're doing other things, amazing. Be passionate about what you're doing, but I strongly believe that everyone needs agile
Yes,
to
of course.
better do whatever they are doing. I tell people, and this is a topic that we're going to address in the coming weeks, in the next 3 to 2 years, whenever people are going through interview, they will be assessing your agile
I
understanding,
understand them. That's true.
regardless of the role you're interviewing for,
Yes,
before
that's
they're
true.
bringing you into that organization. And the reason is because, again, this is fact, it's not Karen saying this. 95% of organizations today are transitioning into agile.
Exactly.
That's data. Out of the 95%, 85% are looking to do it right. So that
Yeah.
is why it is becoming a high priority that before they are bringing anyone into the organization, you should at least have some understanding of what agile is. You're not understanding it because you want to be a scrum master or an agile practitioner or anything like that. You understand it because it's needed. So yeah, so thank you very much for sharing that. All right. So again, our theme for today is breakout rooms. So um one of the so according to SAFE, though, the Skilled Agile Framework Institute, they stated that one of the benefits of PI planning events, which is one of the most important events in this whole safe environment, one of the benefits of the PI planning events is that ability to meet people face to face
Face to face.
and plan and have conversation and network. But you would agree with me that based on the reality of our society today, how we have transformed digitally, that face to face conversation is becoming tricky. And even if you're meeting face to face and having this meeting in one big room, it's so difficult to have different people in groups talking about different things and you still be able to control the rowdiness. It's,
Yes.
so that's an issue. And as a result of that, you now commonly hear of breakout rooms. And you only hear of breakout rooms in the passive, but I've never really come across any content where this thing has really been addressed, this breakout room, what's all about, and how it fits into this whole PI planning event. So today, I am really curious to hear from you. And again, our audience, if you have any contribution to make, please feel free to do so. So, what is a breakout room in your opinion, Uchenna?
So I'm gonna say the breakout room is where teams meet to estimate their capacity for each iteration, considering that in say we are planning for iterations. So for each iteration and identify the backlog items they will likely need, to realize their features. Basically, during this process, teams identify risk and dependencies, and then draft the initial team PI objective based on the identification they have made.
Wow. Okay. So how important is breaking out into these rooms? How important is this?
This is a very important section in PI planning. And remember, in PI planning, we are trying to actually assemble a reasonable plan for the upcoming iterations or sprints, if you may use the word, which will help us as a team to get our actual PI objective. It is also a time to kind of collaborate, as a team and work towards dependencies, risk, and where we can actually, resolve these dependencies that we are talking about, especially the internal ones. This will actually help us resolve dependencies faster, find out ways which we can actually mitigate our risk if possible. So that's why I see it as a very important aspect in PI planning.
Awesome. Thank you. So I just like to add that the standard agenda of the PI planning is two things.
Yeah.
The first part of the agenda is to present the business context and share the vision. And because it's a program and everybody on that team, they may be working on different pieces of the program, but it all aggregates at a big picture, which means that they should have a common vision. That is why the very first part is important, which is the vision sharing and presenting the business context. And the second part of that agenda is now teams planning their iterations and their objectives. So it just makes sense that if you're not working on a specific piece of it, it's not going to be interesting to you if they have to talk about it in this main big room. You see, so it just makes sense that they would want to now gather in smaller groups and then have their conversations around the objectives and how they want to run their upcoming sprints or iterations. So yes, so that I see it as very important, and I just try to always imagine, especially in those days when we used to work in
the offices.
Yeah, in person, and whenever they have these PI meetings, God, it used to be so rowdy because it used to be a very big room, and then each team, after the whole context have been established and the vision have been shared, okay, now the second part of the agenda where each team will now go to their own little corner in that big room and start having conversations. Really rowdy, to be honest with you. I know some organizations, they even had to install noise cancellation devices in these big rooms so that it would cancel the noise that the other team is talking about, so to not distract. But trust me, technology can never do it all. That noise still used to really be there. And then, it was just so really rowdy. So now that most organizations are going virtual, and especially with distributed teams all over the place, so I even really appreciate the virtual breakout rooms because you're really breaking out. You're really breaking out, and it's even easy because all you have to do is just click buttons.
Yeah.
Click buttons, and everyone find themselves in their own rooms. They have their conversations and stuff like that. Okay, so who sets these breakout rooms?
For my organization, based on my experience, it's actually the Scrum Master that sets out the breakout rooms. And another thing he needs to do is to ensure that it is not actually conflicting with other teams' breakout sections as well.
Okay. Okay. So so just give us a summary after you have set these breakout rooms from a Scrum Master perspective. Just give us a summary, just give us an overview of what happens in the breakout rooms.
So essentially, PI breakout rooms is actually held by the team, of course, with the Scrum Master being the one facilitating, these, breakout rooms.
Mhm.
So that's where we talk about work that we are going to start in our upcoming sprints or iterations for the next quarter, depending on how long you do your PI.
Mhm.
Then in the breakout room as well, the team discusses about possible dependencies that they might actually encounter in the course of the sprints, and then they want to discuss on how to resolve these dependencies. So as a Scrum Master, you can as well invite someone like the core people that may be beneficial for your team. When I say core people, I mean people who that might actually help you
Mhm.
resolve these dependencies that we are talking about.
Mhm.
People that might actually help you resolve the risk that you guys might be facing. And not just resolving the risk, they can as well help you mitigate, this risk
Yeah.
we're talking about. So when I'm facilitating, I want to always invite the right people, not just my team. I want
Yeah.
to invite the right set of people that I feel would help us resolve some of our dependencies, especially with the dependencies we have internally. So we
Mhm.
want to have them available and let them help resolve these dependencies and help us mitigate our risk
Mhm.
as quickly as possible. So that's more like it.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember last week, our guest for last week, Cynthia, she actually mentioned this too. She really talked deep about, how one of the benefits of this whole PI planning events is you have your stakeholders available. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
some of these issues, impediments that you've been you've been having, and it's ongoing now, and it's difficult to have a hold of these people because they are
yeah,
busy.
yeah. It,
So during this PI planning meeting, that is that opportunity where, for the most part, you have all these people in the organization or on that project that really matters. You have them available, and you can easily reach out to them and hold them that, okay, come now that we have you present. You have to figure this out before you go. So
exactly.
yeah, so that's really awesome. All right, so okay, now what exactly is your contribution inside the breakout room? What exactly do you, so from a Scrum Master perspective, I understand that the teams are doing their
Yeah.
own, they are planning their iterations, they are discussing their objectives, they are designing the how, figuring out through conversations. Now, where do you fit in as a Scrum Master in these breakout rooms?
As a Scrum Master, it is your duty to ensure that your team is keeping to the time box.
Mhm.
It is actually very important. That aspect is very important so that you guys don't waste so much time trying to resolve
Okay.
just one issue.
Okay.
Another thing is that you need to ensure that questions from the business owner or the product management or key stakeholders, the questions they will be asking concerning your team or the team is captured accurately because
Yeah.
your team is busy doing something. So
Mhm.
it is your duty as the Scrum Master to capture, these questions that will be coming in from the business perspective. So another point there is to make sure that the team is planning to what they can actually commit to.
Mhm.
Don't let your team plan too much. Like
Yeah.
if whatever they are planning should be what we are going to commit to.
Yeah.
So another point there is to ensure that as a Scrum Master, you have to make sure that um, you are coordinating dependencies between other teams as well.
Mhm.
And then you as a Scrum Master, you need to attend the Scrum of Scrum where Scrum of Scrum event where you help other Scrum Masters to resolve some challenges that will be coming in from different teams as well. So that's more
Wow.
like it as a Scrum
Wow.
Master.
Wow. Yeah. So I see that as a Scrum Master, you may really be busy
Yeah,
while
you
your
are
teams are
really
doing their
busy.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So especially keeping your radar up to be able to quickly capture these things, because I always tell people that developers are not wired to see impediments. They are not
Yes.
wired for that.
Yes.
Scrum Masters are, which means that if your radar is not up during these meetings, okay, right from the on go, you are already setting your team up for failure. I don't want to be that Scrum Master that is becoming an impediment for the team where you're supposed to be helping them take out impediments, and now
Yes.
you're becoming an impediment. Okay, awesome. All right. So what challenges have you encountered as a Scrum Master during the breakout room
There are
sessions?
challenges from
Okay.
left,
Okay,
right,
tell
back.
us.
But one major challenge that I know that is so popular that I encountered in my earlier stage is the technology challenge.
Mm,
And one thing I always do to mitigate this is to ensure that my team tests their gadget. I want to let them know that they need to test their gadget before time. I want to actually ensure that I've had an experience where a product owner was making a presentation, after our breakout section, and then his laptop actually had to reboot. Then
mm,
we had to wait for him for like 10 minutes. But
wow.
luckily enough, as the Scrum Master, I actually have the information he was trying to present to the key stakeholders. So what
Mhm.
I did was, instead of us to wait for him, I had to continue from where he stopped.
Wow.
So these are actually one of the major challenges you have in breakout section. Another challenge is poor capacity management. If you don't manage your capacity very well, properly, if you don't capture your capacity in the course of this PI planning, it might
Mhm,
actually affect you during your sprints or
mhm,
during your iterations. So you
mhm,
want to ensure that you capture the right capacity for your team. You want
mhm.
to ensure that those who wouldn't be available for so iteration or so days, you want to capture it into your capacity planning. So if you miss out on all this, you might actually have a big challenge
Mhm.
in the course of your sprint.
Awesome. I really like the point where you said your PO he had a technical issue with his laptop and it
Yeah,
has to reboot and it took like 10 minutes.
yeah,
And within that time, you were able to quickly jump in and help. And I
yes,
think this is a very important point because it just points to the importance of team spirit,
yeah,
and that exactly is what agility is all about, working as a team. Just imagine that as you all were just doing your thing in silo, you're just focused on, oh, I'm only a scrum
yeah,
master. The PO is just doing their own, like, okay, that's the PO's responsibility, not mine. Imagine that you were not working and you were not an ally with your PO. That would have been a bit chaotic. So because of that team spirit and because of the relationship you established with your PO, not fighting with your PO or anything like that, you were able to just pick up the slack and run with it.
yeah.
Because if one person is failing, if the PO failed, you have
The
failed
team is failing.
clearly, and you were able to jump in and help, and now your team was able to be successful through that. So that's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm just curious, how many times does teams have to go into this breakout session on average, during like a PI planning?
So it's actually once, if
Okay.
the PI planning is like some organizations do their PI planning for 3 days, some organizations do theirs for 2 days. So if the PI planning is three
I'll be
days,
very frustrated if I have to do PI planning for 3 days. I'll
yeah,
be
so
so frustrated.
I've actually experienced it where we do
Mhm,
PI planning for 3 days. So it depends on the organization.
mhm.
So it's actually once, then the team will have to go into breakout session rooms for each day based on how many days they're
Mhm.
actually doing their PI. So if it's 2 days, your breakout section will be 2 times in
Okay.
those 2 days.
Okay. Wow. Oh, okay. That's really interesting. So, is there a specific average time duration or time box teams spend during each of the breakout sessions?
So in a typical agile agenda, there is a 3 hours breakout
Mm-hmm.
on day one
Mm-hmm.
and a 2 hour breakout on day two.
Mm-hmm.
And the intention is just to basically getting the team to work towards a projected plan. And
Yeah.
that's why we are having that.
Okay. Wow. 3 hours just for meeting.
Yeah, 3 hours breakout day one, 2 hours on day two.
Yeah. So, but what do you think though? What do you think? Isn't this really challenging for teams to go be in a room for 3 hours and planning? Isn't
It
that
is. Yeah,
because
it
in my
is.
experience, I see team members they gradually they're not there anymore. They may be there in person, but their spirit their spirit is in another country already.
Another thing I do during our PI is that I want to have a kind of a group chat, a team
Mhm.
chat with my team members. I want
Okay.
to, especially now that we work remote. So I
Mhm.
want to make sure they are in sync with what we're actually talking about. I
Mhm.
want to chat them up and say, "Hi guys, how you guys doing? I hope nobody's out and all that." So I'm
Yeah. Okay.
engaging them as the PI planning is going on as well. I
Okay.
want to engage the team. I want to ask just some few funny questions and have
Okay.
them respond to me. That's how to engage my team as well.
Okay. That's good because to be honest with you, Zoom fatigue is real though.
Yeah,
Zoom
it is.
fatigue
It
is
is.
real. You know, to be in a meeting for 3 hours, I will zoom out clearly. Yeah. So I want to also assume that they take little breaks. So do they usually have little breaks here and
Yeah,
there? How
yeah,
does
there's usually breaks, like an hour
it?
break, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes as well. So
Mhm.
it depends on how the team is functioning. So there are breaks in between.
Okay, awesome. Now, I'm also just curious to know what happens. Let's assume that they've been in their breakout rooms, they've actually planned their iterations for that PI, and now they have clear objective, everything put in place. After that, what happens?
So at the end of the breakout, all the teams involved will present their plans to the group, where they talk about the risks and dependencies and how they plan to resolve or ways they want to mitigate all these risks and
Okay.
dependencies.
Wow.
So the team is expected to actually ask the business owner as well if the plan is acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
if it is acceptable, it is brought into the team board so
Mm-hmm.
everyone can actually see the aggregate of the objective unfold in real
Mm-hmm.
life. But if
Brought
it's
into
not,
the program board, you mean? You mean program
yes,
board or
yes,
the team?
yes, into the board.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but if it's not acceptable, then we want to know why it is not acceptable.
Yeah.
What are the issues we need to resolve? What
Mhm.
are the comments coming from the key stakeholders or business owners? So if it's not acceptable, so this is
Mhm.
when we now want to go back to kind of adjust our plan or resolve depending on the feedback we're getting. So we
Yeah.
need to resolve and ensure that whatever they must have commented on, probably they don't like or they want us to add, we begin to add all those things or we begin to resolve all those things.
Wow. That's really interesting. Thank you so much. So after you do all of that and make the adjustments, because that's what I'm hearing. After
Yes.
making the adjustments, and then you have to convene again, and and you vote for confidence, right? Or
Yes. Yes.
how does that part work? I mean, like before the whole meeting comes to an end, because I believe that after the breakout room and then you finally agree, make all
Yeah.
the adjustments based on feedback. So what happens like before you call the meeting close?
Yeah.
How does that
Most
really?
most organizations just do the confidence votes and then
Okay.
that's it. But in my past experience, we
Mhm.
don't just do the confidence votes.
Mhm.
We want to do a quick retrospective as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not,
Okay.
it's not going to
Okay.
be a quick one because we want to be able to capture some of the challenges we encountered in the course of this PI. We
Mhm.
want to be able to know possible things that we can actually add to
Mhm.
our upcoming PI in order to make it more interesting or valuable or whatever we need to add. So that's why I always encourage most organizations to just do or have a quick retrospective, event, and then before closing the PI, and then use that opportunity to thank your teammates as well for
Awesome.
making out time to spend 4 hours, 3 hours every day to
Yeah.
and all that. So it's an opportunity for me to actually call out on a certain team members and actually thank them for the input they must have
Mhm.
made in the course of
Mhm.
that PI and just,
Mhm.
recognize them, give them a little shout out, and then
Mhm.
before we close our PI.
Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you so very much for sharing all this insight. For those that just recently connected, again, My name is Karen Formafong. I am your favorite Agile evangelist, and today I'm hosting one of the finest in this Agile space, Uchenna Okereke. And our theme for today is breakout rooms in the PI planning, and we've covered a lot of great insight. So if you missed any of this as we proceed, please make sure that after the broadcast is over, go back and watch it. And if you have questions that we didn't get while we're on the broadcast, feel free to, put it in the comment section, and as we have time, we will revisit this conversation and we'll try to answer your questions as we know. And I just want to remind us that that we being agile, they offer mentoring, coaching, training sessions for agile practitioners, specifically scrum masters, mentoring for whether you're a PO, RTE, all of that. We offer great mentoring programs. So for our level 1 training, it's starting on the 2nd of August, the next session. Enrollment is already currently going on, and do not delay. Stop procrastinating. If you're looking to get into this space, get your work-life balance, please do so. Stop waiting,
Yeah.
because you keep waiting, you will still be in the same position and you will still have to come back to it whether you like it or not later. So there's no point waiting. Get on the board and get on board, and let's help you with this. So that being said, if you want to sign in any of the programs, visit the description box on this thing and you will be able to get more insight, or check the pinned message on this chat here. You should be able to get a link to our website. From the website, you should be able to figure out a way to enroll, and it's very straightforward and easy. All right, so that brings us to the end of our interview questions. Now, I just want to leave room for questions and answers from our audience. So we're just going to run through the questions here, and please feel free to add more, so that as you have the time, we will cover them before our session comes to an end. All right. So the very first question we have here is, Nina said, everyone has great testimonies. I'm so excited to start in August. We are so excited to have you and walk this wonderful journey with you, Nina. All right. So Evelyn is asking, what is the relationship and or difference between PI planning and big room planning?
So PI planning is, some people call it big room planning.
Exactly. Yes.
And some call it PI planning.
Exactly.
So
That's really what it is.
there's no difference there.
Yes.
So it's just that people call it big room planning because of the number of people involved, and some people call it PI planning.
Yes, I totally agree with you. So the thing is, PI planning is just one of the different kind of big room plannings. So any planning that will have to involve so many people, in a big space, is just called big room planning. It's just a name. So PI planning is really just one of such meetings or such events. I've actually also participated in a meeting where we only talked about roadmap. It was a big room planning. All of the stakeholders for that project was part of that meeting. It wasn't a PI planning or anything. We were just setting and establishing roadmaps for that year. So that was really it. And it was a big room planning. So yes, PI planning is just a form of big room planning.
Yeah.
All right. Beauty says this life is educative. Thank you. We are glad that you see some value in it. Awesome. Uchenna, you've been value adding. Awesome. Thank you so much.
It's a way of contributing to the community as well.
And we really do. I appreciate it. I want to assume that our viewers also do appreciate this opportunity. So Miss is asking, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Miss J is asking, who are the people? So Miss J, if you add more context to what you mean by who are the people.
So I think if I may add to what she's saying, she's trying to understand the people involved in PI planning. So it's basically the Scrum Master and the entire Agile team. Agile team, the product owner, the developers, the QA guys, and all that. So it's basically Scrum Master and the rest of the Agile team.
Okay, so it's typically the Agile team involved in these different breakout sessions. All right, awesome. Emeka is asking, Who controls program backlog? That's the first question. So I see Emeka's question have subparts and inter subparts and like many questions in one. Very interesting. So the first part of the subpart of the question: who controls breakout program backlog?
So if program backlog or program board is meant to show the dependencies, between teams.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you need to know is that the more dependencies you have, the more coordination overhead that the team needs to go into. So the program backlog is where we go to populate the dependencies. And if I'm going to say it's going to be the RTE, depends on organizations as well.
Organization, for real.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
true. Yeah, because in my own experience too, I've been in an organization where the program backlog was controlled. The owner of the program backlog was the RTE.
yeah,
Not
depends.
that the RTE is actually the one generating items into this backlog. He was just ensuring that the items that have to be in this program backlog are actually in the product backlog. And then in addition to that, the RTE really partnered closely with someone they called Global Product Manager. So the global project manager was like the manager. So the different POs were under that global project product manager.
Product, yeah.
Yeah. So the different POs were under the global product manager, and they have this what they call the master backlog or the program backlog. And yeah, and he was the one overseeing that in partnership with the RTE.
So he's more like the general overseer of them all.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, at what time will the product owner access of the team's backlog? At what time will the product owner access the team's backlog? I think that's what he's trying to say.
At what time will the product owner? The
Yeah.
product owner has access to the team backlog anytime, any
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Like I said, it depends on the organization as well. The product owner owns the backlog. That
Okay.
is, one of the things that a product owner should be focusing on, the
Yeah.
backlog, what
Yeah.
we are bringing into the backlog. So the product owner has that access anytime in the course of PI.
Awesome. So the third part of the question says, what is the difference between program backlog and team backlog?
Program backlog is more like a general backlog in PI planning.
Yeah, I
And
think we already addressed the question
yeah, we have. Yeah.
earlier, but we didn't talk about the team's backlog. So now
Yeah.
maybe we want to talk about the team's backlog. What is the team's backlog?
So the team's backlog is where you guys are capturing your features, where you guys are capturing your stories, where you guys want to kind of collaborate as a team and stay in sync and focus on what you need to work on. So that's where where we have the team backlog. It's not it depends on teams. Each team have their own team backlog. So it is not a general thing, but we have the product backlog where we come up to populate dependencies from teams, various teams as well.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm assuming that Emeka was asking about the product backlog. I'm assuming that's what he was asking.
Yeah.
And the product owner is really the owner of that product backlog. And then the team owns the sprint backlog. But in SAFe, they call it iteration.
Iteration.
So yeah, they own the iteration backlog. So in this case, we have three backlogs at this point. What some people call the portfolio backlog. Some people refer to it as a program backlog. And then after that, below that, we have the product backlog, and then we have the sprints backlog. Okay, so Prince is asking, what are uncommitted objectives?
Oh, okay, Prince. Uncommitted objectives are basically items or work which we planned, but we have not committed it. We have not committed to it yet. So we have committed objectives and uncommitted objectives. Let's say our general objective is 10 items, and out of the 10, we have 7 items that we need to focus on as a team. The remaining 3, will be the uncommitted objectives.
Okay, awesome. All right. So Lawanda is asking, what are some? I'm just adding that because I think that's what she's trying to say. What are some examples of some of the dependencies the stakeholder can help resolve?
So it
If
depends
you
on
just
what
want
the
to give us like
dependency.
one example, that would be good.
So I'm gonna say one example is probably if you need a certain feedback or a certain information
Mm-hmm.
from the business aspect. It depends on what that information is all about. But most of those informations are being cleared
Mm-hmm.
from the stakeholder aspect, or probably it could be from an external vendor. You need a clarification from
Yeah.
an external vendor. So
Mm-hmm.
you need someone to help you probably get in touch with that external vendor as soon as possible in order to clear that dependency. So dependencies varies, but some of the dependencies we have in the team are being cleared at team level, or
Mm-hmm.
probably you need a certain information. It could
Yeah.
be you need an information from stakeholder. You need for them to verify on a certain item.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a dependency because if they don't verify what you need, you cannot go ahead to resolve
Yeah.
or to work
Yeah.
on those items that you need to work on.
Awesome. I can totally agree with you because I have a similar example too. Working on a product that I worked on in the past, one of the typical dependency, because Lawanda is looking for an example,
Okay.
is the UX designer. They've come up, they've done whatever they're supposed to do, but yet they need approval before
Yeah,
they can,
yeah,
before
approval.
the implementation can actually happen. So we were depending on that approval before we could even move forward. So
And
that's a typical example of that. And then
as
you're reaching out to the stakeholders, they are nowhere to be found. They're busy.
exactly that's the issue.
This part busy, but now because of that meeting, some organizations they have quarterly product planning meetings,
Yeah,
which that's a
yeah,
whole series on its own that we're going to talk about. And some organizations leverage PI planning like this one. Now you have the stakeholders available.
yeah.
And it's interesting to know that this thing you've been chasing this particular stakeholder for like 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks just for them to go through this thing and approve, and they are not
Approve.
available. Their life, they take just like 10 minutes to make that happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, and now you're able to move forward. Okay, so thank you so much, Uchena. So I think we already discussed this one again in the form of dependency. So Onyinyechi is asking, what do you consider as risk in PI planning?
So Onyinye, if I may add to contribute to what you're asking, risk is anything that threatens the team's ability, to deliver value. Anything that could stop or hurt the team from delivering value is considered as risk.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Rita Williams is asking, what does it mean when you say your breakout room session should not clash with other teams when scheduling? Well, I think what that really referred to, because Uchena mentioned that, because to me, it's during in-person PI plannings. You just want to make sure that whatever room you're scheduling your team to do their breakout in, and it's not already being taken by another room.
Taken by another room. Yeah.
Yeah. So that really applies when it's an in-person PI planning setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, but with virtual, you can create like 1 million rooms.
Yeah.
That's why I just really enjoy the virtual setup for the most part, except that I miss meeting people face to face, which is really important. All right. Let's see what Sirita Sarpong is saying. Hi, thank you so much for this information session. Question: what's the difference from Safe and Scrum?
Okay. Instead, we have more like the portfolio level. We have the value stream, which is optional. We have the program. We have team level.
Mm-hmm.
And at team level is where we have Scrum.
Yeah.
Scrum is at team level.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is that capacity planning at PI is at PI level.
Mm-hmm.
You plan your capacity from PI level. When you're having your program increment, you begin to plan your capacity planning. While Scrum, you begin to plan your capacity at capacity planning.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes I prefer save,
Mm-hmm.
because you begin early to prepare ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
But in Scrum, you're just planning your capacity at just the capacity level.
Okay, at the sprint level.
Yeah,
Right.
sprint level. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Awesome. So just to add to what you said, you know that on the agile, I'm talking to the person who has a question.
Yeah,
On the agile, we have different frameworks. There are so many different frameworks on the agile. Scrum is a framework of agile, the same as safe. Safe, which means scaled agile framework, is just another framework of agile. You have less, you have so many different frameworks, Kanban, extreme programming, so many different ones. Now, safe is born from Scrum. Scrum is actually a foundation and which is a framework on its own. And where safe comes in is, one smart guy just thought of, okay, now that we have so many different Scrum teams, usually four and above, working on a common product, how do we coordinate to ensure that we remain aligned on a common objective, remain aligned on the vision, and we are able to deliver the right thing to our customers and delivering the thing right, even when we are working in separate different smaller teams? How do we do that? And that is how safe was born. You see, so safe was generated to be able to resolve that issue of coordination, of synchronization, and stuff like that. And it's not all organizations that practice Scrum actually does safe. No, in the market, just like 11% of organizations practicing Scrum are actually doing safe. From the last time I checked, and that was last year, just like 11% of organizations doing Scrum are doing safe. Different organizations choose to do different scaling approach. I've also worked in an organization, we did what we call shield agile. So it's a form of something someone would think is safe, but it's not, because there are so many things that safe actually encourages, and we didn't do that. But it was also very, very helpful. Yeah, so that's the difference. Let's we have just 6 minutes left here. Let's take this question from Emeka again. What will the Scrum Master should be looking? What should the Scrum Master be looking at to identify dependencies or risk? You should be looking at your team, like, okay. Uche, now, can you help us with that question?
you have to ensure your team stays in sync with what
Mhm,
they are planning towards.
mhm.
Because if they are all collaborating as one, they're able to identify dependencies and risk, and even provide you the necessary information on how to resolve them or mitigate them.
Yeah.
So you, as the Scrum Master, it is your duty to ensure that your team stays in sync and
Mhm.
collaborative
Yeah.
during PI planning.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So, Prince is asking, what are the best tips for effective PI planning?
Oh wow! So there are a lot of tips, for effective PI planning, and one is the one I capture. I can actually capture as why. You
Mm-hmm,
need to have a purpose
mm-hmm,
to a purpose for the PI and what
mm-hmm,
you are hoping to achieve,
mm-hmm,
during your PI. Another
mm-hmm.
one is preparation. You need to be clear upfront on what to prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not clear upfront on what you need to prepare for ahead of the PI, I don't think you will have a successful PI planning. Another one I would say would be no surprise. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, no surprises.
Yeah.
You want to ensure that everyone, you know, is familiar with the features
Mm-hmm.
you guys will be working on. And you want to as well ensure that everyone has a basic knowledge or understanding
Mm-hmm.
about agile and safe.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
if they don't have this understanding or knowledge, they will not know what to do when they come into PI or breakout section. So
Okay.
you need to ensure they have those knowledge. Another tip there is organization.
Mm-hmm.
Ensure that if you're working remotely or you go into office, ensure that logistics and stationaries and other things are set up ahead
Mm-hmm.
of time. ensure information is as well circulated within the team so that people don't get into big room planning and you see people running here and all
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So,
Especially in an in-person setup, that can be
yeah,
really chaotic,
it
you
does
know.
happen. So ensure that they have the necessary information on where to go to
Yeah,
or the meeting point and all that. So these few tips would help you have a successful, PI planning.
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing all that. And just to add to that, I just want to say just one point: proactiveness.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
me, that's
right.
the biggest secret. Just be proactive and get everything straightened out before the actual day. All
Yeah.
right. Let's hear from Abiola. Is asking for breakout rooms. Is each room created by each Scrum Master, or the coordinating Scrum Master creates all the rooms for all teams?
When you say the coordinating Scrum Master, do you mean the RTE? So,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
but
Maybe.
the yeah, the Scrum Master creates room
Mhm.
for his or her team.
Yeah. For an in-person setup.
Yeah,
Now, for a virtual setup, in my experience, because this thing is just a button click, whoever is facilitating this thing
yeah, we'll
can
release the
have a
link.
co-host, and in
Yeah,
partnership, it may be a scrum master, maybe any scrum master. The RTE may be partnering, or even an agile coach, anybody. But the point is, you want to first agree
yes,
ahead of time on who
yeah,
will be handling which task, and then when it comes now to the breakout rooms, they just go ahead and create. Whoever has agreed to do that task will just go ahead and do
you
it.
do it.
Awesome.
It's
Okay.
basically about sharing the necessary link. Whoever that is doing it should just share the link, and the people that needs to join would join. That's more like it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so we have just I'm the timekeeper here as well. So do you plan for capacity before or during breakout sessions?
Well, come again with the question.
So do you plan for capacity before or during breakout sessions? When do you do capacity planning? Is it
It it
before or during?
it varies as well.
Mhm,
Some organizations want to plan their capacity when they go into the breakout session.
mhm,
Some organizations want to plan their capacity during PI planning. So it varies on how you are allocating your time. But
mhm.
from my own experience, we plan our capacity planning during our breakout session.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so exactly. I think organization teams do it differently. But for Karen, proactive, I'm very big when it comes to proactiveness because I don't like pressure. I don't like pressure. So I always make sure that I control what I am able to control. You see, so with that, I make sure that we do our capacity planning ahead of time, even before the actual PI planning. The day of the actual PI planning, we are just, agreeing
Talking
and
about it as well. Yeah.
yes, just fixing, adjusting based on what have changed from the last time we talked about it. Yeah. Okay. So someone made a very important point here that I just want to read here. So Lorenzo is saying, just to add on the duration of the PI planning, usually if it's face to face, it's done 2 days, but if it's done remotely, it takes up to 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, remote setting, it's not easy.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, what do you show in your program board? I think what is on the program board are all different aspects. The work that you want to do, the
Yeah.
dependencies, the risk
Dependencies.
you've
Yeah.
identified, and stuff like that. Those are some of the typical components
Yeah.
of the program board. Can we say team backlog is same as sprint backlog? Yes, that's what it is.
It is.
Yeah. And then Ben is saying some of the dependencies can be resolved at Scrum of Scrums meetings. Very true.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why. That's the reason for Scrum of Scrums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before PI or during PI meeting. That is why planning ahead helps teams to have shared understanding of dependencies or risk. 100% correct,
True.
Ben. Really
Yeah.
agree. And thank you so much for that contribution.
Wonderful
Uh,
contribution.
Yes, Ade Tutu, I love that name, is asking, what type of report do you give to your manager at the end of the iteration? Okay.
So
I think I strongly, maybe that's something we can take in the upcoming series.
Yes, upcoming series. Yeah, because these are
Yes,
different. Yeah.
yeah, we apologize, but I promise you that we will address this question when we are talking about that part during
Just
this.
stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Yeah, connect here next after next week, and we will be addressing that question for you. Lorenzo is dropping some very important points here. I just like us to read it together. So, risk in PI planning could also mean any impediment that could impact the team's ability to meet their objectives.
If
100%
you
correct.
if you don't remove or resolve that impediment, it becomes a risk.
Yeah, and even the risk becoming an issue is still called impediment.
Impediment. Yeah.
All right. In my organization, the RTE creates breakout rooms, and the rooms are prepared before we start the PI just to mitigate chaos and delay. Yes, 100% correct, Lorenzo. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of this input because that's how together we exchange knowledge.
Yeah.
And then Chosen, thank you guys for the work you do to help us become Scrum Masters, learn. Thank you so much, Chosen, for being part of our little village. We do appreciate you. Stella, very true. I prefer doing capacity planning before the PI planning. Yes, Stella. Thank you so much for your input. All right, Lorenzo, thank you guys for this great session. It is really informative watching from South Africa. Oh my God. Thank you, Lorenzo. We appreciate you for, contributing and being part of our little village. So we are almost coming to the end of our session, and I just really want to appreciate you all for watching. Continue to share, continue to spread the word, continue to tell people about what we do so that we can expand this agile space and impact knowledge and create impact in the product development industry. Thank you so much. And I would just like to ask Uchenna, Uchenna, I cannot thank you enough for sacrificing your
No,
Sunday,
no, no. I should be the one saying thank you, coach.
one full hour on Sunday. Instead of going around enjoying life, you decided to come here and stay put and share your knowledge with us. I really do appreciate that, Uchenna. So I'm very sure that our audience do appreciate you as well. So if anyone is interested in networking or just connecting with you, Uchenna, how can they get in touch?
Okay, you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is Uchenna Okereke.
Okay.
Just simply, yeah, Uchenna.
All right. So yeah, you can see his name on the screen, how it's spelled, because it was just yesterday that I had to get his spelling right. I always spell the wrong thing.
I know.
Yeah. So thank you so very much, everybody. And again, like I said, our next session for our Scrum Master training, certification training, starts on the 2nd of August. If you still haven't enrolled, for whatever reason you're waiting, do not wait. Enrollment, the space usually fills up really fast. So stop waiting, reach out through our website and enroll so that you start working on this thing. You know that it gets lonely at the top.
Yes.
To be honest with you, it gets lonely at the top, and we want to drag as many people as possible to the top so that we will be having parties together at the top. So thank you all so very much. And Uchenna, I really appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Hope you have an amazing rest of your Sunday. Bye.
Yes, and thank you too, coach. Thank you. God bless you.
God bless you too.